It's that time of year again. The end of it, somehow. It's also that time of year I look back upon all the games and fun romps I've had about, thinking about what a great year this has been for the games industry. Wait, fuck, what have I played that came out this year? Well, fuck. Yeah, I day one bought Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, played it to death until about the halfway point, and then proceeded to not touch it for a solid 9 months. Because I ran out of time, okay? I got busy. So, that game, while amazing from what I played, sits unfinished and dusty on my shelf, meaning I can't rank it by my own arbitrary rules. Um, is there anything else? Ah, that one System Shock remake that I just beat and didn't totally plan this entire video around. Of course! Sure, it released March of 2023 for Steam and PC and all that stuff, but the PS5 release was in March of 2024. So yeah, please just give me this one, okay? It came out this year. I mean, it's either that or the re-released ports of Doom 1 and 2, which I beat again on my PS5 because I just have to beat every single version of Doom that ever exists. It's a law, a natural law that cannot be broken. So yeah, I think I'll be focusing on System Shock 2023 for this year's Game of the Award of 2024. Obviously. System Shock 2023. The game that dared to reintroduce the age-old question to a new generation of old heads. Is there anything more 90s than a future filled with rogue AI, physically and tangential cyberworlds, and neon wheelies with rockets bubble-taped haphazardly upon their brims? As the game bluntly puts, the answer is no. No, there isn't. And if you said yes, well, the door is over there. Go. You're not welcome here. However, despite if you went through that door or not, let's just imagine that it is the unfettered, unembellished truth of the 90s for whatever that runtime at the bottom says, okay? Because otherwise, I honestly don't know if my soul can handle any more discouraging information from this year. So, the 90s. A time of envisioned future neon-plagued streets and gaudy gizmo gimmicks leading our lives. Very much unlike the future now. This future envisionment of radical possible timelines was the period in which the original System Shock was created in, and the 2023 remake attempts to replicate as faithfully and genuinely to a microscopic, pixelized greasy New York pizza slice of an experience. Now, I won't hide the fact that I am a poser when it comes to all old PC games, and I have not played that original in any capacity. I mean, I did once load it up, as one does with old games that they bought off GOG sales for ludicrously cheap prices during a sudden momentary lapse of simple reasoning. But I did not proceed beyond the opening menu. I simply booted it up, looked at the cyber 90s encrusted menu blaring before my eyes, probably said some variation of, wow, neato, and then closed the game down to resume my daily mushy brain doom Minecraft adventuring. And so, there poor System Shock resided, sitting in my games folder upon my desktop for years to come. So, after those many years of somehow avoiding the game's anything, even after purchasing it, I came to the conclusion that I should probably get around to engaging with it, in some semblance of a even minuscule manner. So, of course, rather than engage with the version I already own, purchase, had downloaded, and was sitting in the middle of my desktop, I instead went ahead and purchased the 2023 Nighttime developed and PS5 2024 released remake of that original game as any reasonable individual would do. Okay, look, I, I was always put off by the daunting aura of the original. It just always seemed to be giving off the vibe of one of those exemplary pieces of mandatory media to experience in order to gain a slight understanding on the domain as a whole type of media. Kind of akin to how that first volume of Dragon Ball that my cousin lent me, currently gathering dust in the corner of my room next to my copy of Final Fantasy VII, is supposedly a fundamental part of any manga head's has-read list. This aura scared me away from interacting with it really in any manner. So outside of some scant wow this game is radisms and discourse-isms regarding the 1994 original, I avoided nearly all discussions. So what this means is I never really knew of its true radity, because I hadn't engaged with that genre really much at all. I've no foot in the proverbial relay's raceway, no opinion on any discourse running alive, and that's how I'd like it to stay. I mean, of course, I've played your fair share of Dishonored, jumped around Bioshock, hated that, bounded around Bioshock Infinite, didn't actually hate that, bought Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, which then refused to run on my lovely graphics cardless laptop, and then I've experienced a wee bit of Deus Ex on the Sony Entertainment PlayStation 2 way back in the who knows fuck when, which actually was pretty good as well if I remember right. And as human memory is the highest source of infallible information, that means it was so. System Shock 2023 is inherently a good time of waiting, not only because it allows me to flush a toilet and wash my hands of my own volition, but gives me the choice, player agency. So, therefore, it is a part of the greatest subset of games known to all. The games that give you the incredibly nuanced, humanic dilemmas of good and evil that in turn reveal every detail of the virtues within your soul depending on the actions you take genre. So, therefore, I don't give a fuck about anything else. I'ma play me some of that video game. So, what is the game itself? Well, it be a remake in the same way that GCN RE Remake be, revamping the original's everything for the sake of modern sensibilities. Updated controls, art style, graphics, play style, tone, art style, frame rate, art style, okay. Holy golly fuck, this game looks gorgeous. I love the pixel aesthetic. That weird, realistic, yet voxel vibe the game splats upon your face upon booting it up is breathtaking. It just invokes the feeling of retro vintage futurism fuckism that is so distinctive. I love it. It really does cement further that idea and concept of retro modernism that the game seems to be striving for as a remake. Wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. The story also, akin to that of remake of RE, is essentially the originals. I mean, again, I assume. You're dealing with an uninformed third party when it comes to regarding the original's anything. So take all these comparisons that require a bit more depth with a healthy heaping of salt. The game begins by loading you up and thrusting you immediately into the most cyber-ass activity possible, waiting for some files to copy from PC to a fat USB. Hell yeah, just like Blade Runner, baby. Amidst your file copy stealing, all goes horribly and you, the hacker, are subjugated to a little bit of the commonplace niceties for your exploits. Next thing you know, you've awoken in front of some bigwig Bezos motherfucker who offers you the ultimatum of either continuing the journey through the very much uncorrupted legal system, in which you'll very much be fairly convicted of your criminal offense, or hacking and getting some sweet cyber-ass mod thrown into your body. What a tough decision. We are then once again intruded to that ever-so-sweet police enforcement, which prompts us a swift snooze. After a title card flash-up thingy-mabob, we awaken in the remnants of some medibay aboard a motherfucking Starship Citadel. Too bad it seems to be run rampant with mutants, cyborgs, and some cyborg mutants on the side, hell-bent on making your day just a little bit worse. From here on out, you discover audio logs and emails, shoot and bash some baddies, satisfy your raging chronic kleptomania, get utterly blasted by some laser fiends, blow up clusters of flame-throwing Scorpo Robos, die to an obligatory flying pterodactyl whilst trying to beat the most difficult game of chess you've ever been a part of, and experience the thrills of personal head trauma. You know, so on and so forth. Your typical cyber-ass exploits. Right, I'll cut to the chase. The game is positively and derogatorily extraordinary, in every manner and interpretation you can take from that. From what I gather here to present to you, it seems to be an incredibly accurate, intricately well-designed recreation of the original's everything, even down to the defects and deficiencies of those 90s era PC em-ups. This esoterica may be an inviting aspect to some. However, if you're like me, it will be a very detracting element from the overall game time spent. It is hard. Quite hard, in fact. It is obtruse. It is cruel beyond bitterness's belief. It is nonsensical while being completely sensible. And I'm pretty sure it's wanted on federal levels for crimes of harassment. Needless to say, the game elicits some very mixed emotions. On the one hand, I genuinely love the game for all these regards, excluding the harassment that is. However, I also see them as the major detriments that they are, needlessly harming an otherwise phenomenal experience. Sure, some may point at this and say, well, it lets you modify various aspects of the difficulty individually. And you know what? Yeah, that's quite nice. Thanks, Night Dive. That customizability and difficulty is greatly appreciated, genuinely. However, it kinda means a squat of shit when you can't change or modify it mid-game. How was I supposed to know that the default middling average options would still cause me such pain? Trust me when I say that, on the standard defaults, it isn't hyperbole in the slightest that the game is constantly emitting a vibe of some heartless wench wanting to constantly pour salt on a newly exposed paper cut. It is cruel. It is pain, the game. A fact which it seems to love relishing in given every moment possible. Honestly, like mentioned before, it's something I could have lived without. These difficulty critiques, you'd easily expect my biggest gripe upon the first couple of hours to be the obtuseness of the puzzles. Looking at you, random junction boxes that I don't actually consider the absolute bane of my existence. Or you might think that I'd complain about the ruthless beings roaming around. But no, that surprisingly isn't the case. Rather, I had a separate, just as meaningless gripe. That gripe was the control and console jank, as this game originally be a PC game, in both re-release and re-release. System Shock very much is smeared with a gnarly case of PC master race, and that isn't easy to wipe off when porting to console. Much of this smudgage is due to the quite precise control scheme and menu, which was entirely designed around the concept of using a keyboard and mouse. Sure, it may have nearly tempted me at several points to actually buy that awesome looking Dreamcast mouse and keyboard from my local antediluvian retro game store, because what other reason would I have to buy this majestic piece of junk? However, I resisted the temptations of big keyboard. They aren't getting me. For now, anyway. Eventually, I did get used to these PC to console controlisms to some degree. Still, they always felt just the littlest bit janky. Whether trying to swap and organize my inventory Resi 4 style, pick up a very specific item littered on the rubbish-laden floor, or just aim me Cyberworld Cyber Blaster, I just seem to always be slightly askew. No amounts of option tuning sensitivity adjusting solved the issue either. I just had to adapt and evolve into a higher being, becoming accustomed to the fact that my aim had an XCOM-esque percent chance disadvantage of hitting the enemy, on top of my atrocious marksmanship. Speaking of those Cyberworld cyber blasting sections, they were fine. Not much to say about them, honestly. At first, the janky motion made me a wee bit confuddled, disoriented, and honestly, quite motion sick. But eventually, just like all the other controlisms of prior, I simply became accustomed to the feeling and the wanky motion, until eventually it subsided and completely disappeared amongst the sea of green wireframe vapor waves. My lovely old pal How Long to Beat marks this game at roughly 23.5 hours of total average playtime based on all styles of play. What a load of lying fucks. I started this game expecting a medium-length reprieve, a world that I could explore for a rather shortish time compared to other adventures of recent. However, what hell lay before me I could never see coming. For adequate relation of just how much this game melted my mind in its never-ending storyness, let me tell you what my expensive-looking dusty white brick tells me is my total runtime. 77 hours. 77 fucking hours! Granted, that is the PS5's weird time recording summary thingy, and there were totally points when I left the game on by accident for several hours. However, it really wouldn't shock me in the slightest if my total was roughly 50 hours. Which, holy fuck, dude. If it wasn't for the bloody sunk cost fallacy, this game would be sitting on my dropped like a sack of bricks list. However, as How Long to Beat marked it at 23.5 hours, and that site never lies, I constantly kept thinking, there can't be too much more. And so I sunk more and more of my fleeting life into it, which is probably now even shorter because of the amount of stress-inducing moments this game contained. I mean, but I couldn't just drop it. Otherwise, all that time would have been wasted. Don't be like me. Seek help if you too suffer from chronic stupid investment issues. Now, you may be wondering, but what is the why for the egregious playtime? What could have possibly added an additional 30-ish hours to that total of a hell time? For an appropriate answer to these questions, resort to subject A1 as discussed prior. The game is bloody esoteric and gains pleasure from rupturing your soul while simultaneously giving you a nice bloody bash in the skull. And then, once that is done, refer to Lil Mega Cubed in the corner there, which is the fact that I sadly do have some sort of ego, and that made the experience much worse than it needed to be. What I mean by this is, for some weird, vague, strange attempt at replicating past lives' experiences with the original's esotericism, I determined that the best way to play would be to do so without following a guide nor any semblance of a walkthrough. Again, what a stupid decision. Don't do this. Guides exist for a reason. They are phenomenal. Use them. The amount of time I spent looking for that dumb decapped head, or some lever I barely missed, or some other random wee bit is equal to, if not even beyond, my own levels of stupidity. Like, chess AI puzzle? Fuck me! I'm not ashamed to admit that after more than 2 hours of failing to even come close to beating it, I resorted to using a move calculator. And even with the help of that, the aid of Deep Blue's Descendant, I still lost 2 attempts before I even conquered the fucking red hologram bitches. The gremlification of the mind was real by the time I reached the measly 1/3 point of the game. I wasn't prepared for the rest of it. However, to say it wasn't quite enjoyable looking at all my acquired footy for B-roll, and just seeing the impish gremlin I'd morph into at points, would be a complete lie. Just the utter mushification into a viscous sludge of my brain, on camera, was too great to ignore. Melting brain matter aside, One positive, at least of this gramification for the game, is the manner in which it conveys that lovely feeling of ownership one has after dispatching and ridding all enemies upon a current floor. You can just roam about, not a care in the world, looking and looting upon the fallen smithereens of scattered appendages, smiling the Doomguy grin all the while. You know, after saying that out loud, definitely not a positive, just more gremlin goblin brain mush talking. One weird bit I did and do love was just how janky the game be physics-wise at certain times. It embodied the aura of that 360 PS3 era first-person shooter taking cues from Half-Life 2 model of physics, which just brought me some sort of vague comfort. There were numerous times when bodies would just explode, dangle haphazardly within the ceiling and just jiggle. Each of these moments, sure, they took me out of the game, but not in a negative way. They immersed me in a time period and era of gameplay that I had gone too long without experiencing in some manner. Too many polished experiences I have endured of as late. So, whenever I saw these jiggling, dancing, dead corpses, I was like, shower me with the jank. Give it to me. So, for those moments, I can only thank the game. I'm one of the fools who enjoys the jittery junk that comes along with harmless glitches. I genuinely enjoy the manner in which they grab me CQC Snakely style and just pull me out of the game. They serve as firm reminders that this thing is indeed a cobbled together bunch of numbers, lines, and passion, barely functioning. It's lovely. It was a lovely feeling. So thank you, gaggle of weirdly jiggling dead bodies. After all, I'm not playing video games to forget the world. I'm playing them in order to simply have a good time within that world. So, for any current and or future developers who might be listening, first of all, thank you. It really means a lot that you're willing to suffer through my brain damage-inducing content. Second, those Earth Defense Force jankisms aren't negatives always. Sometimes they're fine, just let them reside in your handcrafted world, reminding people that they were crafted individually by the hands of some human on the other side of some screen somewhere in this realm. All this is to essentially say, my thoughts for System Shock 2024, my Game of the Year by default, is that to those who say they don't make them like they used to, I'd like to have a quick word. And by quick word, I mean I'd like to grab this game, shove it down their proverbially morose swollen throat, and then proceed to ignite it with the power of 4 million pounds of TNT. In other words, they do in fact still make them like they used to in our Decade of the Lord 2020. It's just that how they used to kinda sucked sometimes, intentionally, which made them come back again curveball style and hit you square in the jaw with an interesting time. So, in short, I'd say it easily slots snugly between Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid 2's torture scenes. Take that as you will.